Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. And we got a great episode for you today. We're talking NFL draft, and we're talking the Phillies preseason. We got all that and more in today's episode. Let's get right to it.
Probably shot a Rockefeller hover. Now I go to war like a soldier. Yeah. Plus they tried to count me out, thinking that it's over. But I got to fight. Rocky Balboa. Yeah, I got to fight like Rocky Balboa. Yeah, I got to fight. Rocky Balboa. Yeah, I got to fight like Rocky Balboa. Rocky Balboa with the fight. Yeah, I got to fight. Yeah,
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your host, Braden Knapp. And we got the three Stooges here today on our panelists. Here on my left, we got Chris Grass. How are we doing?
Doing good, man. Small crew, but I like it. Like us three today.
Ready to talk, definitely. Over on the end, Tyler Farmer. How are we doing?
Doing good. I'm ready to cause some trouble today.
Definitely. As usual. You know how it is. Well, let's get right into it with our Eagles talk. And Eagles, they set their sights on the Combine and free agency. Let's talk about it. NFL Combine is from February 26th through March 1st, of course, and is at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Of course, this is where draft prospects show off their measurables, their physical traits, and they put on display for NFL teams. This is also a chance where they can interview draft prospects, and this is, of course, where they can have one-on-one interviews and really get down with the player and kind of feel them out and see if they really like this guy. But with the Eagles here, I mean, there's a lot of interesting guys, I would say, a lot of interesting prospects who we could say the Eagles are interested in. Because honestly, right now, there's not, I would say, one prospect or even two or three who are like, okay, this is who's been frequently mocked to the Eagles with the 23rd overall pick. That's who they have, I believe. So it's very interesting to see kind of where they go and where they're looking. I'm going to go over to you, Chris. How do you feel about Eagles going in the Combine?
Well, you mentioned it. Yeah, there is definitely a ton of different avenues they can go to for whether it be linebacker, secondary. But for me, I'm going to go I feel like a little outside the box here. I think they should address the offensive line, a group in the past that's been dominant, one of the main strongholds of the team. Last year took a slight step back, and with Jeff Stoutland no longer being on the staff, I feel like that's a very underrated, huge loss. And Lane Johnson, he was banged up all season last year. Didn't play against the 49ers, and unfortunately, we don't know how much longer Lane's playing career has left. So I think they should address the tackle position. The two guys that really stand out to me are Monroe Freeling from Georgia. Eagles love their Bulldogs, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, just to name a few. He gave up 2 sacks in over 350 snaps, so, no complaints there. And then another guy who went to Utah, his name's Caleb Lomu, had 0 sacks allowed in over 350-plus pass attempts. So I want them to go look at those two. I feel like getting some depth, or even, maybe they eventually start down the line at offensive tackle, or they move them around. But I think offensive line is where they should go, at least in the first round.
Definitely. Tyler, what are we thinking? Where do we think the Eagles are at least going to be looking in this Combine?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to jump on the offensive line bandwagon too. When I look at the Eagles roster, I'm like, okay, you've got 2 All-Pros in your secondary. You don't really need to address that first round. You have, a defensive line, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, who, you want to pay both of them eventually. You don't really look at that. Linebacker is a possibility as well, I think. But I just think this league is still built in the trenches. And I think the way to win championships is to be strong in the trenches. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, they definitely had the best offensive line in the league. And they had one of the best defensive lines in the league. You still have one of the best defensive lines in the league. But, Chris, like you said, the offensive line kind of took a step back next year. You don't know if going down the road who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. I think even if it's not a guy who is going to immediately start this year, someone who can sit behind Lane Johnson for a year and learn, someone who might be able to sit behind Landon Dickerson for a year and learn, so that if these guys do end up leaving, those young guys that you draft this year are ready to play. I got to agree. I got to go offensive line as well.
I agree with you guys. I am all for the trenches, at least with this pick. If we're not going to trade it away, because I'm honestly open with that too, we're looking for trenches, at least in this Combine. I mean, you touched on it earlier. I mean, there's several good guys with Lomu, Freeland for the offensive line spot. Obviously, you guys have touched on it. I don't want to just repeat that. But also obviously on the other side of that, defensive tackle. Obviously, the Eagles are known for producing defensive tackles. Is that the biggest of needs in the world? No. However, is it still a need? I would say is it yes, because obviously Jalen Carter, he's amazing and he's game-changing, but he's not playing every game, unfortunately, as what it seems like, and it seems as though he gets injured a little too much, at least not as much as what you would want. I feel like defensive tackle, and obviously Ajomu, that's the guy you might have to re-sign going down the line or get rid of. That's another thing. I mean, there's plenty of other guys. I don't think Peter Woods, that's a talent defensive tackle. I don't think he'll make it to 23rd mark. But plenty of other guys out of Texas Tech. You have Hunter, who had a fantastic year. They were on a great team, but he's a very good defensive tackle. And then Caleb Banks out of Florida, defensive tackle. I mean, he's a monster. He's 6'6", 300-something pounds. He is, I believe, I heard a quote of him saying that he would tear through, and it's mother. I can't pronounce the rest of it, but he is a dog. And SEC, that's how he likes SEC boys. So I mean, that's something I definitely look in for the draft. And just real quickly, is there anyone, at least with you guys, that sticks out to you in the combine you want to touch up on? Not necessarily for the Birds, but you think he's just a cool prospect to look out on.
I mean, obviously, he's going to be the number one pick, but Mendoza, I'm just really intrigued by how his career is going to play out and how his measurables are at the combine, because I don't know if he's going to be the freak athlete that everyone loves to see, but I mean, basic pick, but Mendoza, because he's going to be the number one pick.
Definitely. I mean, he's going to be someone to watch for sure. What are we thinking, Tyler?
I mean, for me, I love Peter Woods from Clemson. I think that guy's meant to be, a Baltimore Raven. I love everything about him. I think he's going to come in, plug and play, and be just a dominant wrecking ball from day one. So, I really love him. I really think he's going to be a great player with the Ravens. But, yeah, I got to go Peter Woods.
Definitely. I mean, one guy, he's probably going to be, he should be a top 5 pick. He'll be somewhere in the top 10. Obviously, Caleb Downs, one of the best prospects. I just think he's a dog, and safeties don't get that much recognition, at least draft-wise. He definitely will be a top 10 pick and the first rounder at the very least. But if I'm any team, you pick him right away. That, at least to me, that's a blue-chip player. That's going to be a safety for a very long time. And I think I know Pro Bowler is not really a cool thing anymore to say, but he's definitely going to be a very good player. Now let's talk about who the Birds leaving the nest, and that they're key free agents with the Eagles, and that is Jalen Phillips, Reed Blankenship, Nakobe Dean, Dallas Goedert. I mean, the Eagles have until the legal tampering period, which is March 9th, to negotiate exclusively with the free agents before any other teams can negotiate deals. And some interesting news here, just coming off of some reports here. Sirianni actually just in a little press conference said they can't really guarantee A.J. Brown to be back with the team next year. I guess it's not all completely surprising, but Chris, how do we feel about all this nonsense?
Yeah, man. Obviously, it's A.J. Brown. There's always going to be some drama, some headlines around him. But I wanted to touch on real quick one of the key free agents of Phillips, Blankenship, and Dean. If I could only pick one, honestly, I'm going to say Reed Blankenship, just because of the leadership he provides in the secondary. I mean, his relationship with DeJean, obviously they're super tight. He's not the only reason DeJean's as good as he is, but he's a big, great mentor figure for him. I really want them to bring Blankenship back for those traits alone. But yeah, a lot going on with the Eagles. I still think AJ is going to be back. I do. I mean, the cap, his salary for other teams, I don't know if they're going to want to take that on, but yeah, I'll say bring back Blankenship, and I think AJ stays.
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be so interesting to really see. Tyler, what are you thinking real quickly?
I got to go with Jalen Phillips. This team went from a bottom 20 pass rushing unit to a top 5 pass rushing unit when he got there. So I think Jalen Phillips, they have to prioritize re-signing him.
I mean, he's a dog. You traded for him for a reason, I feel like. We'll bring him back, but that is all the time we have for this for the Eagles. I will get into that next week. We'll see what they do with the combine and how the combine goes. Now let's talk about our Sixers. And is there a need for Embiid, man? I think so. Sixers win the last 2 following a 4 games losing streak. Embiid missed 5 straight games, and the Sixers lost 4 of those 5 games. Kind of interesting how that works. And Embiid had 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in the return game against Indiana Pacers. That was definitely a much needed win. I mean, they won previously against Timberwolves in a good win, but it was a definite needed win against the Pacers. Pacers are not a very good team, and they looked good last night, and it was refreshing to really see Embiid and Maxey playing. I mean, Chris, it looks good when they're playing with each other. I don't want to get too all crazy talking up here, but I mean, it's beautiful watching them play with each other. How do you feel about that combo?
100%. Embiid and Maxey, when they're going, is genuinely one of the best duos in the NBA, especially in the Eastern Conference. Joel, it's obviously he's going to put up 30. He's going to do his stuff offensively, but just his presence on the court, he demands so much attention from the defense that it just makes Maxey that much better than he already is. We know how good Maxey is, all-star starter, 30 points a game, but his numbers when Joel's out there versus when Joel's not, he's significantly better when he's playing alongside Joel. I mean, VJ Edgecombe said it when they were in the midst of that 4 or 5 game losing streak. What did he keep saying to the media? We need Joel. We need our MVP. We need Joel. He just kept repeating himself. And, I mean, VJ also in the game against the Pacers was a plus 27, had 23, 4, and 7. As good as Tyrese Maxey is, and one day it really will be his team, and I know everyone wants to already crown him as the team's best player, but it's apparently obvious that when Joel Embiid's out there, he's still the guy, and he's still the one that needs to be out there for the Sixers to reach the ceiling that I'm not going to get too crazy, but they're still going to make the playoffs. If the season ended right now, they would play the Knicks in the first round, and that would be a little rematch of a series we had a couple of years ago. And I don't know, not that they would win, but I think it would be another 6 or 7 game series, and it would be close. And as long as Joel's out there, Sixers still have as good of a chance as anybody in the East.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Joel really showed that, him coming back. They're not the Sixers without Joel. I mean, unfortunately, everything just flows better. I feel like at least when you're watching, that's what it seems like. Tyler, how do you feel about the Sixers coming back, winning some games a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely needed to get back on the winning track because, especially without Embiid, those 4 games, they did not look good at all. But we kind of touched on just how important Joel Embiid is, not just for what he produces, but his just presence being there on the floor. They need Embiid to stay healthy. And I know he's not going to play every single game. I don't think that's fair to ask, but we can't have these stretches where he's missing 5, 6, 7 straight games. You can't have that because you see that this team at one point was streaking. They were like 8, 9 games over 500. Then you lose 4 straight, and then you fall back in the standings. And you're at a point now in the season where you can't really afford to fall back in the standings and have these losing streaks because you have an opportunity right now in the Eastern Conference where it doesn't really feel like anybody is like really separating from the pack, where you could really do some damage in the Eastern Conference. Get your guys out there. Paul George comes back at the end of the month. Get your guys out there, get these wins, and set yourself up to have some success in the postseason.
And with this upcoming schedule, they really can set themselves up. I mean, especially Embiid, he's flakiness stays away a little bit. I mean, they're going to need him for these next couple games, especially pick up some big wins here. Their first game coming up here, they're playing against the Heat, and they follow that in Boston, playing against the Celtics. That's going to be a tough one, but for Eastern standings, we want to see that. And following that, they're going to play Wemby and the Spurs here in Philly. These are going to be some tough games. I'm obviously really interested to see, especially not only do I feel as though we have such a fun dynamic duo in the front part of the rotation with Embiid and Maxey, but I mean, kind of coming off the bench, Grimes and Bona, I just wanted to give them a little shout out because I just feel like they have been a fun little duo, especially the last couple games off the bench. Bona's been developing at least with all that we thought he would be, and he's definitely becoming a better player. But Tyler, going these next couple of games, all these guys are going to have to step up a little bit. Embiid's going to have to be there. But how do you feel they have to do going these next couple?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely the next 2 games are really pivotal, especially when I talk about just getting a leg up in the standings and proving that you can beat some of the better teams in the Eastern Conference with Miami. Miami, it feels like no matter how good or bad Miami is, they just always seem to give the Sixers fits. And then Boston, even without Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown has taken it to another level, and Jason Tatum still could come back at the end of the year. Boston's going to be right in that mix. at the end of the year. So that's a game where you can prove yourself and say, like, hey, we can take on the top teams in the East and we can beat them. And then the Spurs, I mean, the Spurs, in terms of actually winning the game, it's not that big a deal. They're in the West, but they're one of the best teams in basketball. So to try and prove yourself against against a team like that, that's going to be a big confidence booster.
It really will. I mean, just to go in, obviously it doesn't affect them personally within the standings Eastern Conference. You go in, at least you beat one of the best teams in the Western Conference. I mean, that's a great morale booster. Chris, real quick, how do you feel these next couple of games are going to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep saying it. Just take 2 out of 3. I think they get by Miami. Boston, because it's on the road, and they always seem to struggle with Boston no matter what the year is. So I'm going to chalk that one up as a loss. And then I honestly think they will take care of business against the Spurs. We all know what happened 2 years ago. Wemby's rookie year, Joel scored 70 on him, and that was the best game of Joel Embiid's career. So not saying he's going to do that again, but I think Joel will put up another great performance against the Spurs.
Definitely, and we'll see next week how they do in these next couple of games. Now we're going to be moving on to our Flyers talk. Let's talk about how the Flyers have been doing, and they have been back on the ice after the Olympics action. First game back is February 25th at the Capitals, a 7 p.m. game. And no days off with the break here. Michkov did physical training and conditioning every day during the break. That is amazing. We love to see that as Flyers fans. And then let's talk about here, are they buyers or sellers before the March 6th trade deadline? Well, they're in a spot, ladies and gentlemen, because they are 8 points outside of the playoff push, which today gives them only an 11% chance of making the playoffs. Now, it's not impossible, but 11%, really? What are we doing? But now, on the flip side, okay, well, what about the draft pick? Well, they are not that bad. Well, they're now they have the 12th worst pick odds to get the number 1 pick. Well, only the top 11 are able to even in contention to get the first pick. So they have positioned themselves in a terrible spot, not even make the playoffs, and not even be able to get the first pick. So the Flyers have put themselves in a predicament here, Chris. They really have. What do you feel as though they need to do going forward?
It's what we call no man's land, Braden.
Yep.
They're 25-20. They're 6th in the Metropolitan Division, which only the top 3 teams top 3 teams from each division make the playoffs. And yeah, they are in just a classic Flyers weird little spot of like, they're not elite, but they're not awful either. And I honestly don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. I feel like Danny Briere is going to lean more towards selling because if we're being real, this team unfortunately probably doesn't have a major chance to win the Cup. I wish they did. I wish I could come up here and say, of course, the Flyers are going to win the Cup or be in contention, but I just don't think that's realistic. But yeah, obviously great to see Michkov, listening to Tocchet, listening to everybody, getting his getting right over the Olympic break, which shout out to Team USA for defeating Team Canada. Unfortunately, Travis Sanheim and Rick Tocchet took the L, but still love them for the Flyers. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's just another classic like Flyers. They're middle of the pack, no man's land. They should sell, but I don't know with Danny Briere because he gave they said they were rebuilding, and then they gave Dvorak a 5-year contract. Who he's already in his 30s, which for hockey that's up there even more so than any of the other sports. But I think they should sell, but we'll see.
And thank you for the shout out there with the hockey. I forgot to mention that, but of course, took the golden hockey. Awesome USA. Let's go. Beat stupid Canadians. Screw you guys. Going over there, we just a little sidetrack there. Going back to the Flyers, because we had to mention the gold medal. Of course we did. We're USA, of course. Going over you, Tyler, the Flyers. What do you feel as though the direction they need to go in?
I mean, I feel like this team kind of has been, up to this point, disappointing. I really thought they would be. I really feel like they're not that they've regressed, but I just feel like they're in the same position as they were last year, and you were hoping that they'd be, even if they're not Stanley Cup contenders, they'd be a little bit better. And it just feels like they didn't get better. And, we've kind of talked about some of the struggles defensively. Now, granted, some of the injuries they had, some of those guys will come back, and that'll help. But it just feels like with this team, it's just like you said, you're stuck in that no man's land, and you're not. You're just not getting better. Now, you do play Boston and Toronto in 2 of your next 3 games. So if you want to try and improve your playoff position standings, Those are the two teams you got to beat. And then you have the Rangers the Rangers are not that good. They're a very beatable team. So if you can find a way to get all three of these games, you could really improve your playoff positioning and give yourselves a shot. But it just feels like it's with this team one step forward, two steps back this year. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Definitely, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. My hopes at least was that obviously they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. We didn't really expect that, but pushing a little bit more, I feel like, and at least, I mean, they talked about that over the whole offseason, was that they're going to be trying to at least get in that playoff push, because you obviously can't make the playoffs and then win the whole darn thing right away for any sport. But it's about getting there, getting to the playoffs, and just getting that experience within the team. So the fact that they're not even close to that, and now, as we said, no man's land. They can't even get into draft position. I guess that's still not technically untrue, because they still can lose a lot more games, which I don't want them to do. I'm not saying to sit here and go lose, but if you can't go and win, then at least get a better pick in the draft. That's at least what I'm saying. That is all the time, though, we have for the Flyers. Now let's talk about our Phillies, who are right in the spick of it in their spring training. And they're fresh on hot L's, unfortunately, only in Clearwater. They have started 0-3-1 in their spring training, but they've just picked up their first win against Detroit. So at least they got something here. And the opening statement, though, Crawford goes 2 for 3 at bat versus the Blue Jays. And their next game is February 26th versus the Nationals, 1 p.m. But I will say, obviously, it's spring training. I don't think anyone's too concerned about winning every game. Obviously, you don't want to lose every game. But, however, it's more about the prospects and looking at the guys you have. And the one guy we have here, Crawford, I mean, he's looked really good. Obviously, Schwarber started off really good, which we all kind of knew. But, I mean, seeing Crawford playing really good is awesome, because you knew, I mean, he's going to be a big part of this team this year, at least you think, in center field. So seeing that was awesome. And some of the other players, at least, it was good to see him back out. Chris, how do you feel about Phillies so far?
Absolutely. And with Crawford, that first at bat, I really thought he fouled one off down the right field line, and it looked like he was going to hit a home run. And even as we're seeing right here, his double was a line drive to center field. That was off the wall. So showing a little more power, and hopefully he's shutting the people up that just keep complaining about his ground ball rate. That was the problem in AAA. But 330 is 330. I mean, if you hit that in AAA, more times than not, it's going to transfer over. And yeah, like you said, he's going to be the everyday guy in center field. Not going to have a ton of pressure on him. I feel like at least to start the year, they're going to have him bat towards the bottom of the lineup. So love that I've seen some Crawford so far. Really excited to see Andrew Painter as well. He makes his first start this Sunday. Been the prospect in Philadelphia over the past several seasons. So hopefully he can he's coming off Tommy John. He's coming off major injuries, so not putting that against him. But hopefully he can finally put it all together and show those flashes on Sunday. And because until Zach Wheeler comes back, and we're gonna need Painter in the rotation to at least start the year, probably going forward, because if he's really this elite prospect, gonna be better than Taijuan Walker, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Alec Boehm has been solid so far in spring training. It's just spring training, but love what I've seen out of Boehmer. Obviously Schwarber, Bryce is getting going, and Otto Kemp, sneaky guy off the bench. He went deep today. So yeah, solid start. Only been a couple games in spring training, but still getting optimistic, getting excited for opening day.
Definitely, and that was a good homer by Kemp today. I saw that. It was great to see him at least doing something within preseason. Tyler, how do you feel about their preseason so far and within going into the start of their season?
I mean, for me, it's just good that we can talk about the Phillies and we're not recapping an episode of Baddies with all the drama that they've endured this offseason and stuff. But I feel like, even though the 0-3 start, you don't really get too high or too low about it at the end of the day. You kind of, it's preseason, your starters aren't playing, in that, your starters are not playing in that type of capacity. And even when a regular season starts, it's 162 games. So, 5 games into spring training, you're not really like, if someone's struggling, you're overly concerned, or if someone's playing amazing, that you just are ready to just buy up all their stock. So, you kind of, for me, it's just kind of like, let's see how some of these guys progress over the next couple of weeks as we get close to opening day, and just kind of see where some of the younger guys end up at the end of the day. I think that it's just fun watching some of these guys get the opportunity to play, get the opportunity to show what they're made of, and, we'll see where it goes from here.
and as you said, opening day is getting closer every day, and I feel as though obviously they have the team that should be going and contending far. But, is there something different about this team? It seems they're fun. I feel like they got a little bit younger. Obviously, I like Casti, but they got a little bit of toxicity out a little bit. So going over to you, Chris. So at least as it gets closer to opening day, what are your season hopes? Do you feel as you more ready for this year compared to other years, or is it just the same, or is it just like, what are we doing? What do you feel?
I think we're in an era of Phillies baseball where, at least for the next couple seasons, they're still going to be competing. Everyone talked about the window closing last year and it was the end. I don't necessarily think that's true. Obviously the Dodgers are still the team to beat. Got to get by them to even consider yourself as a favorite or anything. But I still think the Phillies are going to be a really, really solid team. Probably towards the top of the NL East. If not, they'll be a first or second wild card. Zach Wheeler touched on it earlier, but all the reporting on him is that he's going to come back way earlier than expected. Seems like Tom McCarthy, Phillies play-by-play guy, mentioned that he thinks sometime in early May he's coming back, which that just lengthens the rotation even more because you get Wheeler. Sanchez can be your 2 again, who he's an ace in his own right, and then Luzardo's a 3, even year Aaron Nola. So the pitching's going to be great. The bullpen is a massive, massive plus for this team with the addition of Brad Keller, full season of Johan Duran. And I know we all remember the throw to home plate when JT's pointing to first base, but I think Orion Kerkering is going to have a lesser leverage role this year. He's not going to be in as many high leverage innings. I think he's going to have sort of bounce back season because if he doesn't, it might be his last season here in Philadelphia. But still feeling confident. Still think we're going to see Red October again, and we'll go from there.
Definitely, and I'm glad you touched on it. Wheeler, at least that injury not being as bad as what it seems. That's awesome to see. Real quickly, Tyler, what are your season hopes of the Phillies? Excited? Ready?
Yeah, it's time for some baseball. We'll see where this team is in October, but I think this is going to be a good season.
Definitely. And unfortunately, that is all the time we have in today's episode. If you would please stay tuned next episode. Of course, there's going to be so many awesome things that happen within Philly sports. But if you please check out our socials at SportsTalk LTV on X and Instagram. It'll be interesting to see what happens after the Combine and, of course, after some more preseason games with the Phils. Thank you and goodbye.